Good Monday morning, everyone. You can probably hear, well, maybe you can, maybe you can't, hear a wood pigeon over in the distance in the woods singing. That's always one of those signs of spring, along with all the birdsong, of course. I'm out here at the front of the cottage just to show you some of the work that I got done yesterday. So you can see all the Leicestria Formosa's been cut back. Both great big shrubs. All that will come back on again with vigour. See some of the stuff here. At the moment I'm just moving it now to a place where it can biodegrade. And the quince over there against the wooden barn, that's beginning to bud. That's been trimmed back. You can now see the ivy that I planted there. I think it was, well, yeah, it was during the summer last year, so that's taken very quickly. I'm hoping to grow ivy up over the cottage walls for several reasons. One, it's a good form of insulation. And if the rendering on the outside of the house is in good condition, which it is, then ivy is fine, absolutely fine. So it's a really good form of insulation. It's also a really successful way of helping insect life. Just come up close to it here. Because you can get lots of little insects making their homes in the ivy. And then that in turn provides a feeding ground for birds. So there's a little bit of box in there as well. What that was actually was just a pot. A pot that I'd put some box into and a few little cuttings of ivy, and it all took, and then it seemed to outgrow the pot, so I just literally emptied the pot there into that little place and put some compost around it and some compost. I'm going to top that up again today actually. And then you can see how successful this has been. So I'm looking forward to that growing over the summer. Now I've cleared out all the dead Montbretia from the beds either side of the door. And you can see the birch trees now growing well. Lots of bird life this morning. And there's snow promised. Apparently there's snow. There's a level, is it a level yellow or a level orange weather warning has come in on the radio from the Irish Meteorological Office about snow. So we're going to be seeing snow. So this was the part of the front of the cottage, I think, where the greatest amount of work was done. And my grandson Dominic actually helped me because he had to get up on a ladder and cut back lots of the clematis, which wasn't just growing up through the gutter, but you can see little bits of it were coming up through the slates on the roof. So we've cut all that back and given it a really good prune, given the pyracantha a good prune as well. So it just leaves me now to top up the beds with some fresh compost and some compost. Trimmed that little tree back there. Didn't want it overtaking the cottage too much anyway. I don't mind it growing up along that corner because again it gives insulation and shelter. This is the camellia in that big barrel. Clearing out lots of the moss as well. Oh, look at this little one. She's just charging along there to leap out on Jack. So you can see I have the rake out there, and there's just some of the sphagnum moss. The sphagnum moss grows very vociferously around Ireland, and especially in the northwest. And I know in parts of the UK it's a protected. It's a protected plant, but in actual fact here in Ireland we have an overabundance of it. So what happens if it gets really dry, if we have a really dry spell, like a little drought, which sometimes we can have during the late spring and early summer, the sphagnum moss will appear to die off and it goes very yellow, and it kind of keeps it at bay. But if the winter's been very wet, like this has been, then the sphagnum moss can really take over. So a bit of clearing out there. Cutting back all of the old growth, because this is the time, of course, to do that, to cut back the old growth. Bushes like the buddleia here has been pruned. There's also some ivy planted very much in the same way. In fact, you can see it needs to be topped up as well with compost. But look how eager that ivy is to get up the wall. So, of course, the other aspect of having ivy planted in and around your home is that you don't need then to be painting the outside walls, which can be a very expensive job. I've done it myself in the past. I haven't done the chimneys. The chimneys were done by a friend of mine, but I've always painted the walls myself, and it is quite a big task. And the paint, exterior paint, is very expensive. You're looking at about 50 to 60 euro for enough paint just to paint this little cottage, and that's just on the front side and this gable end. I obviously don't paint the wall inside the barn or the back wall. The back wall I paint in various household paints because it's very sheltered. So, a lot of work done, and still lots of work to be done. And I'm going to go around the back and just show you now what I've done around there. Jack! Just call him to come up with me. Good boy, let's go, let's go. Look at all these buds here on the Ribes sanguinum. That's fantastic. So, you can really kind of see the cottage, but not for long, because all that's going to be growing really vigorously. Right, we'll go around the back. So also pruned the buddleia here, got lots of cuttings to put through the shredder. Didn't prune it too hard, because I think as it's on the edge of a woodland garden, it doesn't really need to be pruned hard. It can be left to be itself. All these little birds. So, I had a huge pot of this New Zealand flax, and if you recall, it was just over there against that wall, just in beside that spiral. You see the empty pot there now? So it was outgrowing the pot. In fact, I needed 3 people, well, 2 people to help me and myself. We had to get it out of the pot, and what I've done is I've used the old fire pit as a planting bay now. So that's where the New Zealand flax is. I think it looks rather nice in there. It looks rather lush, and I'll just go around this way, because you've got to be able to stand back and see plants from all aspects in order to see how they fit in. I think that looks good there. It looks good. And of course it's going to afford protection as well, because the more plants you have in, the more protection you have. Then when I was clearing up here and cutting the Leicester famosa over there beside the shed, I found this this beech tree, which I'd left in a bucket. So that's going to go into the ground. The old bench has been broken up because it was absolutely rotting. So over the next few weeks I hope to gather some money together and buy a new bench to go here, because this is one of the favourite spots for anyone who comes to Bealtaine to sit and enjoy just the ambience. It's one of my favourite spots as well. So there we go, lots and lots of work, good work, good healthy work. It's lovely to be outdoors and to be able just to be outdoors and do all this. I love it. So I've got my furry boots on today. These are they're little walking boots, as you can see, but they're lined with fur and they've got double zips, so they're easy to put on, to take on and off. I thought I'd need to have my little mountaineering socks and my furry boots on today, as it's promised with snow, and I will be outdoors for much of the time. So, a little bang in there, wonder what that was. So I've got lots more stuff now to take to the recycling. The barn is filling up again. And I've got a lot more pruning to do just within this small area. But I sort of start at one point and I just work my way out. I don't get too flummoxed if I get distracted en route and go on to another task. Now, let's just show you the signs of spring. They're just coming at me all the time. Here we have the beautiful little catkins. Can you see those beautiful catkins on the hazel? Look at this. They're gorgeous. Beautiful little catkins. So a promise of hazelnuts. Jack running down through the fairy wood. He enjoys having a bit of a sprint. Come on, up you come. That's it. And you can see with the black currants, I've got lots of moss growing on them. Look at this. That's just the wet winter. So the way that the garden is evolving, when you stand back and think about it, it's actually very much in line with the climate change that we're experiencing, because we are experiencing wetter winters, in some cases wetter summers as well. We are experiencing periods of drought. We are experiencing stronger, more violent storms. So when you take all that into consideration, a woodland garden around your home is absolutely perfect, because you get shelter, you get good soakage, you get insulation, you create habitat for wildlife, you get food. There's still plenty of food to be found, in fact maybe more so in the woodland garden. You get soil build, because the amount of leaves fall. So you have this beautiful continuity of building soil, which is a huge problem now worldwide, because there's been a serious decline in topsoil. I think the last time I looked at the figures, it was something like 20% of the world's topsoil had gone, and had gone into rivers and oceans. That is not good. And modern agriculture does nothing to build soil. And you know, soil is life. Water is life. Soil is life. So, planting trees, deciduous trees, I must stress, because I did remark on something this morning as I was driving back from Drumshambo. And I was driving along, just coming out of Keechu, and from that road you can see the hill behind me here at Ballyfermoyle. And I noticed that a neighbouring farmer in that direction has planted his land with Sitka spruce, which is absolutely the most destructive thing you could do, in my opinion. Because it's planted with Sitka spruce, there is no going back from there. Of course, there's lots and lots of money available to those farmers who want to plant their land with Sitka spruce. The EU makes sure there's lots of money for that. And so on the left of me, there's Sitka spruce coming up to within 1 field of me. And to the right of me, there's Sitka spruce. In fact, you can possibly see it from here. We'll just walk up this way. You'll be able to see the tops of the trees over there on the horizon. All that Sitka spruce as well. So in the next few years, Bealtaine Cottage is going to be completely closed in with Sitka spruce, and this little place will be, in every sense of the word, an ark for nature. And all that has happened because of greed, not need. Sitka spruce is planted for greed, not need. And it poisons the water, it destroys the land, it pushes out all the wildlife except for deer, and then the deer can navigate their way through these Sitka spruce forests, which are then become sort of channels for them to come onto land and you know, kind of invade land that is you know, grassland, for example, because of course they have to eat. So it's just a massive monoculture fail. And don't tell me that the EU don't know what they're doing, because they do know what they're doing. This is about pushing out people. This is about turning the west of Ireland into a monoculture desert of pine needle green. It's about acidifying the greatest natural resource we have, which is water. It's a massively destructive policy. It is just destruction on an enormous scale. So all I can do is hold this land safe, and when the time comes, when the land behind me will be sold to the forestry, I have no doubt about that. That land is going to go to forestry, because the financial temptation for the people who own land like that is just too much. So in years to come, what is behind me will be a solid green monoculture wall of death and destruction. And you may think I'm using strong language. I'm holding back. That's what I'm doing. I'm actually holding back, because I could use much stronger language. So I'm going to end on a plus note. Bealtaine Cottage is an ark for nature, and if I have anything to do with it, will be an ark for nature long after I have gone. I'm going to make sure things are put into place to ensure that. So on this wonderful Monday morning, listen to the sounds of life, the sounds of life. Who says one person, and especially one woman, can't make a difference? I'm holding the line against destruction. Blessings to you all.